Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's Dark Reading webinar, Advancing UEBA, the Impact of Artificial Intelligence, Continuous Machine Learning, and Cloud Infrastructure, sponsored by LogRhythm and broadcast by UBM. My name is Peter Krass. I'm with Dark Reading, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we begin, I have a few quick announcements. This webinar is designed to be interactive. The dock of widgets at the bottom of your screen will let you learn about today's speakers, download resources, share this webinar via social media, and participate in the Q&A session that will take place at the end of the presentation. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event, so that you don't need to click on anything, but you can download a copy of the slides, and you do that at the Resources widget. Toward the end of the webinar, you'll be asked to complete our survey. This survey is found on the right-hand side of your screen. Please take a minute to fill this out before you leave us today. Your feedback on the survey provides us with valuable information on how we can make future events even better. And finally, if you experience any technical problems, just click on the Help widget. You'll find that widget at the bottom of your screen. Alternatively, you can type your issue into the Q&A area, and we'll be glad to offer some one-on-one assistance. Okay, let's move on to our presentation, Advancing UEBA, the Impact of Artificial Intelligence, Continuous Machine Learning, and Cloud Infrastructure. Today, we have two qualified and informed speakers, Mark Settle and Samir Jain, both from LogRhythm. Mark is the Product Marketing Team Manager at LogRhythm. As the team lead, he works alongside product management and development teams to bring LogRhythm products and solutions to market through research, product positioning, marketing content, and training materials. Prior to joining LogRhythm, Mark led corporate marketing for the Zayo Group. Samir Jain is the Senior Product Manager, Security and Analytics at LogRhythm, where his focus is security analytics and UEBA. Samir has more than 18 years of experience innovating and delivering world-class enterprise solutions, from concept to market launch. And prior to joining LogRhythm, he worked at Avaya for 16 years in product management. With that, we're going to get things started by Mark Settle. And Mark, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Peter. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining. Today, we have a presentation. It isn't about LogRhythm. It's about the advancements necessary in technology to enable you to solve user-based threats for your organization. As Peter said, I'm Mark Settle. Been with LogRhythm for about 2.5 years. I'm starting with a laugh here. Your job, obviously, is to keep your organization safe, and technology plays an important role. But every organization, for better and for worse, has users. On the left side of this cartoon, we have the technology, all sorts of technology. This slide is from 2006. We have even more technology now than we used to have, but we still have users, and users are still learning, and users are people, and they still make mistakes. So with that, we have the purpose behind our work today. So the first thing, first in terms of setting the scene, I want to establish the scale of the problem. So I'll share a few statistics from various sources. First, Verizon and the Data Incident Breach Report. They say that 25% of data breaches involve an insider threat. Insiders obviously have access to a significant amount of data, including often data that they should not have access to. 62% of users are found to have access to data that they should not have access to, which obviously entails risk for the organization. There's work that you can do to limit the exposure from a data perspective, but that will only minimize the problem. It can't truly solve the problem. And that's just one of the reasons why 69% of organizations report that they experienced a recent insider threat involving a data exfiltration attempt. So whether that is a salesperson who is trying to walk away with a bunch of customer records, whether that's someone who works in finance who is trying to get access to information that they shouldn't have access to, or provide that to someone who they shouldn't have access to, the scope of the potential problem is obviously real. we want to start by establishing the use cases that we're trying to solve here. Any user and entity behavior analytics solution needs to solve for insider threats, first of all, because they represent such great risk. Compromised accounts, because accounts that have been taken over by an outside party can be used and often resemble the threat presented by an insider. And third, privileged account abuse. This is a threat that has many different types of names: admin abuse, inadvertent misuse, those sorts of things. But privileged account abuse presents, when folks have the keys to the kingdom, that can obviously present great threat to the organization. From here, we want to dig into a couple elements of the insider threat. The first one is perhaps the most vivid, the most traditional. That is the malicious insider. A Gartner examination of malicious insider threats found that 62% involved employees looking to establish a second stream of income from employer sensitive data. 29% stole information on the way out the door to help future endeavors. We all probably have seen the account of someone working in automobile robotics, leaving Google's Waymo for Uber, and taking a bunch of information and creating an enormous lawsuit that's creating a bunch of risk for Uber. And that was all made possible by someone deciding that they were going to be a little too clever and not just bring their brain, but bring the intellectual property from Google as well. And then finally, 9%. Gartner found that 9% of malicious insider threats were perpetrated by deliberate saboteurs. Someone who is trying to be Samson and tear down the temple as they meet their own end. So we have a picture of an F-15, not just a cool plane. I feel like it deserves an explanation. When we were researching examples of malicious insider threats, one that was particularly striking was Hannah Robert, a defense contractor who stole intellectual property related to the F-15 and associated missile systems. She wasn't as sophisticated with her theft of that intellectual property as she was in business, and consequently she found herself enjoying 57 months in a federal prison. The second type of insider threat that we're concerned about is the compromised insider. These are malware victims or impersonated users, folks who are not Edward Snowden-like figures who are deliberately perpetrating a compromise, but they still make a big difference. You've all heard about the Home Depot hack. As I'm sure you know, this was due to multiple failures, network segregation and other sorts of failures. But one of those failures was the existence of a compromised user account. A vendor had an account that was compromised by a hacker, and that hacker ultimately made his way in through that compromised vendor account. And it was difficult for Home Depot to spot because that compromised user account resembled the behavior of an insider. It would have only been possible to catch that specific element of the threat if there had been monitoring going on to connect the dots between that sorts of behavior. So when folks have the keys to the kingdom, you need to pay particular attention to the threat that they represent. Finally, we have the accidental insider. You know, if a job requires the use of a ladder, an error could result in an accident. But if a job requires the handling of sensitive or proprietary data, accidents can happen as well. So these are inadvertent actors, or maybe people who, not quite inadvertent, but they're just trying to seek some convenience. They're not actually trying to harm their organization. In the case of Woolworths, this was just an entirely accidental event that happened with Woolworths. They had a spreadsheet of folks who held gift cards with Woolworths. Those gift cards totaled about $1 million, spread out across 8,000 different people. And for whatever reason, they had to email those 8,000 different gift card holders. Unfortunately, when they sent that email, they accidentally attached the list of gift card holders and also included all of the information necessary to use those gift cards. So not only did they have to rush to cancel $1 million worth of gift cards and replace those, they also had to address the fact that they had leaked the data of their customers to other customers. So not a pretty situation, a good one to avoid when possible. So Samir from here will take us through the spectrum of attacks and why those require different sorts of analytics approaches.
Yeah, so as Mark mentioned, insider threats are a growing concern, and so they are part of the spectrum of attacks that require analytics in depth. On one end of the spectrum, we have certain attacks like DDoS, pass the hash, golden hash, brute force, etc. So the attack is known, how it's being exploited, the method is known, and these are often high volume attacks. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the zero-day malware attacks like the nation-state attacks, where a vulnerability is unknown or it's injected deliberately by the nation-state. So the attack is unknown as well as the methods are unknown. The volume is low, but it has a deep financial impact on the organization. And somewhere in the middle is the insider threat. We understand the users and the entity, the network entities, but we don't know a whole lot of how that attack is going to be deployed, whether as an insider, an accidental insider, or a compromised credentials where an external vendor attacker has compromised the credentials. So yeah, that's the spectrum of attack. Any UEBA solution must account for a variety of attacks that we see in today's world.
So we've established the problem with the user-based threat. We've established that you need a solution that will both address the high volume, more traditional known threats, and can also address, you also need a solution that offers different analytical methods that can address the lower volume, more unique but highly dangerous threats. So let's talk about how we get there. The first step is to have clean and prepared data. Here this slide shows some of the ways that LogRhythm prepares data, but the principles remain the same. Whatever UEBA solution you choose, whether it's a standalone bolt-on solution or whether it's a solution that's provided by another SIEM or security analytics provider, they're going to be working with prepared data, and that data needs to account for not just parsing the data and processing metadata elements from logs and events from across your organization. Also, they need to perform enrichment. It's important to understand things like the geolocation of someone who's logging into the system, or the directionality of communication that's taking place. There are a host of different types of enrichment that can help the analytics solution start with the best data. It's a truism in the field of data science that most of the gain that you can expect to see when it comes to the efficacy of a solution can be driven from starting with clean data. And it's no surprise that the vast majority of the work that is done by data scientists is typically, and often to the lament of the data scientists, the vast majority of that work is often associated with the preparation of the data rather than the strict analysis of that data. So it makes a big difference to start with uniform data. The reason that uniform data matters, obviously, is because whether you're performing machine analytics, the automated analysis of that data, or whether a user is digging through that data, if it is abstracted one level up, you're going to be able to work a whole lot more efficiently. Think of a user. If you're not spending your time writing regex rules, but are actually able to pivot on keystones within the data to move around different users, to move around different hosts, and to follow the data where it takes you, your investigation is going to be a lot faster. Or if you think about machine analytics, if a machine analytics solution is able to understand that a checkpoint firewall and a piece of Cisco networking equipment and another piece of equipment are all abstracting, if they're able to understand the different types of data that those are presenting, even though they're speaking different languages, it's going to make an enormous difference for understanding your environment accurately. The second thing associated with data, obviously, is that you need to associate that data back to a specific user. It doesn't mean much if, in the case of our fictitious user here, Mr. Greg Smith, it doesn't mean much if all of their account identifiers, which represent different types of accounts, are distributed across different logs and you can't associate those things back to one another. If someone logs into Active Directory, if someone then logs into Dropbox and uploads a file, you need to be able to understand the connection between that different type of behavior. Fundamentally, artificial intelligence, machine learning, some of the core techniques of these analytical approaches involve establishing behavior baselines, and those behavior baselines don't mean much unless they're connected to a specific user. So that is the first requirement for an effective UEBA solution: prepared data associated to a specific identity. So From here, we acknowledge that the need for real-time analytics to detect frequent threats. Samir began by discussing the spectrum of threats, on the one side, known attacks, known methods, and on the other side, unknown. To address the high volume of attacks that you typically see on the known and more known side, it's starting to blend into the right. You need a real-time solution that's capable of identifying known patterns. So these sorts of solutions, in description, might echo the more traditional sorts of approaches that you see from SIEM providers. They might operate in a stream-based way, analyzing data as it comes in and looking for specific patterns of behavior across minutes, maybe hours, maybe even days. More older solutions might involve just simple correlation, but more advanced solutions might involve different types of analytical techniques that can be used together. Statistical analysis, peer group analysis, learned lists, learned rates, those sorts of things, when used in combination, put you in a position to be able to identify patterns of behavior without overwriting rules. If you were to write highly deterministic rules that only look for very clear patterns, you're always going to be solving for yesterday's problem. Conversely, if you're starting with prepared data and then analyzing that in a smart way, and if you're able to use analytical techniques that are aligned with the specific problem that you're trying to address, you're going to be able to reliably catch threats and prioritize those threats without creating a ton of false positives. Third, you need to enhance the precision in prioritization of those threats so that you can minimize false positives and really understand what to work on. Most of our customers most of the folks that we talk to in security are handling, they have no shortage of alarms. It's really, their stronger preference is the need to understand what they should be working on. And then finally, we have a couple quick notes on the fact that when you're looking for a solution such as this, you should be looking for a solution that comes ready to work. You should have data preparation that comes ready to work. You should have analytics content that comes ready to work. Maybe you need to implement it, maybe you need to optimize it, but you should have the expectation that that your job has not only begun once you've purchased and begun to implement your analytics solution. So let's walk through what scenario-based analytics look like. What should real-time threat detection look like? Here, we have our version of the cyber kill chain. We have a different name for this, but the idea is the same. Across different stages of the kill chain, you're going to see different activity that is indicative of advancement of a threat. So beyond the ability to identify simple correlation, beyond the ability to alarm when things might be going wrong and to prioritize those alarms, the solution that you're looking for should be able to detect advancement in a threat. As someone moves beyond reconnaissance planning into the initial compromise, into command and control, not only should those generate independent alarms, but they should generate corroborated alarms that can tie those alarms together, reduce the number of alarms that you see, but also surface the threats that are most important. When you're dealing with a user-based threat, these things typically happen quickly, and you can't afford to have those alarms get lost in the daily shuffle.
Yeah, so as just to recap, what Mark mentioned was a requirement to have prepared, enriched, structured data so that the machine learning works better when the data is already prepared. Mark also mentioned the association of network entities to an identity and also a need for a real-time solution for some of the threats that we already know about. Requirement number 3, we also, a UEBA solution should be able to deploy a battery of machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence to enable hunting and user monitoring. So based on our research, these are our top 4 concerns on top of the mind for many security professionals. Number 1, my organization cannot stay ahead of hackers due to shortage of qualified analysts. AI/ML can certainly help here by discovering threats that are outside the threat models, threats that evade the signature-based detection method. So AI/ML can be deployed for go-forward or retroactive threat detection across the global customers. Number 2, I worry that we aren't monitoring for the most concerning threat. AI/ML by baselining what a normal looks like across months and years, and detecting any subtle changes in behavior on top of that baseline. So tuneless machine learning, unsupervised machine learning that works across the broadest set of data to be able to detect that subtle changes can certainly help with this number 2 concern. The number 3 concern, the question is, I can't afford to have my analyst bogged down by a myriad of simple tasks. And here, AI/ML can certainly automate the SOC by automating as many simple tasks as possible, from workforce automation to predictive analytics to be able to corroborate the alarms, as Mark mentioned, from maybe automating the log source acceptance. All of that can certainly help with the analyst situation of machine going through millions of log data to be able to find that needle in the haystack. The number 4 concern that we have seen is my organization needs to address today's needs and tomorrow's too. So by having machine learning, the supervised machine learning, predictive analytics through artificial intelligence, we can get smarter over time. So maybe crowdsourcing the corroborated threat intelligence and use of cloud and its potential is definitely something that we should look towards as well. So we understand AI/ML is really expensive when it comes to scalable CPU as well as storage, which is difficult to meet in just an on-prem hardware. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is becoming more and more better, and so why not use the scalability of the cloud and all the benefit it offers? So reduce cost of adoption, right? So easy onboarding via minimal configuration. We have all heard about the long-running POCs where we are trying to even establish the hardware. We can certainly reduce the cost of adoption by getting all the benefits of a cloud-based SaaS delivery model for AI/ML platform as well. Number 2, accelerate innovation. We have talked about the concern of being able to innovate and keep up with the threats that we see in today's environment. And so by having a cloud-based delivery model for AI/ML platform, we can innovate, maybe come up with a new machine learning algorithm, maybe learn from the customers across the globe to be able to answer questions like, is there a malware outbreak in Southeast Asia in the financial vertical, for example, right? So we are able to innovate rapidly, create new machine learning algorithms, get the supervised machine learning training set to accelerate the innovation through a cloud-based delivery model. And then number 3, streamline the solution delivery. Why worry about the patching and the change window when we can have all the benefits available through a cloud-based delivery model? So any UEBA solution must rely on the 3 benefits that's available through cloud.
Yeah, I guess we would say, obviously, you face a choice. You can choose a solution that's cloud-based. You can choose a solution that's on-premise. A couple different providers offer solutions that are a hybrid of the two or give you the option between the two. From our perspective, based on the research that we've done, of course, most things are moving to the cloud. It makes sense for analytics to move to the cloud as well, just because of the innovation that it enables, because of the simplification of the system that it enables, and also because of the efficiencies of scale made possible by the compute and storage resources that are available through the cloud. That's what we say.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And just to summarize, for the spectrum of attacks coverage, we need a real-time. Any UEBA vendor should be able to provide solution for a real-time threats, scenario-based threats, as well as deploy a battery of machine learning algorithms for behavior profiling to be able to provide the spectrum of attack coverage for today's growing threat landscape. That brings up to requirement number 4. Any UEBA vendor should have a strong integration with the underlying data platform. So the biggest challenge in any machine learning environment is the differentiation between an anomaly and a threat. When does an anomaly become a threat? So here is where our integrated UEBA solution comes in play by providing us that required context to be able to pinpoint that this observation is not just an anomaly, but it's an actual threat. So to be able to precisely prioritize the true threats, we do need some kind of a data platform to be able to help us with that prioritization of the true threats. We have also found that layering of solution is often not the right answer. More security often isn't better security. So bolt-on security solutions lead to inefficiencies in the entire platform, right? So having a platform that's designed the ground up with the data and the TLM, the threat lifecycle management in mind, often is the better solution for a UEBA-based solution or an NPA-based solution. Visualization is key for any UEBA solution. So single pane of glass for a very customized UI experience is also key to any UEBA solution.
I think this slide speaks to the fact that AI and ML, obviously key components of a UEBA solution, necessary but not sufficient. You'll see a lot of startups in the UEBA space that have expertise in data science but don't necessarily have the expertise in security. Well, what we see based on our conversations with partners and based on our discussions with analysts about the efforts of organizations to set up their own, build your own, maybe open source based security solutions, is that you have to marry the expertise around machine learning and artificial intelligence with deep expertise in the security space in terms of the problems that you're trying to solve, the types of data that you're trying to work with. It's when you have those two things together that things start to work well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And so we just wanted to highlight LogRhythm's approach to UEBA. I just have a couple of screenshots I wanted to go through. Obviously, if you require a detailed demo, please do reach out to us. We are happy to give a detailed demo of the UEBA solution we have. But just a quick highlight here, and Mark's going to talk about this.
Absolutely. So the subject of today's call is how UEBA is evolving. I said right at the start that this isn't a conversation about LogRhythm. We're most of the way through our slides, and we'll be answering your questions here soon. In the meantime, I wanted to share a bit about the LogRhythm solution and kind of what distinguishes it. What distinguishes it? So first of all, we have the ability to model user behavior to reveal anomalous activity. We offer multiple different ways of doing that. We can perform behavioral profiling. We can perform peer group analysis, and we have we have a smart team of data scientists who are behind that effort. Secondly, we use our platform is designed with a specific purpose, and that's to solve user-based threats, including insider threats, compromised accounts, and administrator abuse and misuse, the same use cases that we spoke about at the top. We have the ability to do that using both scenario-based analytics, using AI Engine, our long-standing, always innovating real-time detection platform, as well as an anomaly detection-based machine learning platform that can identify user-based threats in a way that we will be showing you in just a second. These analytics solutions detect previously unknown attacks and methods. It can detect both unknown attacks and methods and known attacks and methods so that you can deal both with the high volume of the stuff that you see on a day-to-day basis and on the low volume stuff that might leave you otherwise worried late at night, that whether it's an insider threat, whether it's a piece of zero-day malware, that it's something that you might not be prepared for. Together, the solution accelerates qualification and investigation. We have a single user interface across the entire analytics platform that allows you to work quickly and make the most efficient use of your analyst time. And together, whether it's the analyst efficiency, whether it's the cloud delivery, automated data processing, and the tuneless analytics that allowed the solution to get smarter over time, both in an automated way and based on your feedback, together we have a solution that offers a low cost, total cost of ownership and high customer value.
Yeah, and so just to go over a couple of UI widgets. So that's a UEBA dashboard that's available with the LogRhythm platform. So the top widget is basically machine learning identifying number of unique users and entity within your organization. We also highlight in a very org-wide view the number of observations that we have seen across the user population. And then we distinguish these observations to threat events. So anomalies are good, but threat events are even better. So the top processing widget also identifies the number of threat events that is available based on the scoring period. The middle widget is the user distribution widget that provides the security profile across the organization. LogRhythm, just like the RBP, we score every user, every observations on a score of 0 to 100. A percentage-based scoring is we have found is better understandable than a big number. It's difficult to compare. So we highlight all the users and entity in a user distribution widget, with obviously the reds being the higher threat actors within the organization. We also have a number of widgets that's available. For example, the top anomalous user widget. By the way, these widgets are highly customizable in the sense that you are able to create your own watch list. For example, you may like to monitor your high privilege user or maybe IT admin staff, or maybe you want to monitor the people who are being onboarded within the last month or maybe offboarded. So we provide a filterable watch list to be able to just customize the dashboard just what the analyst need. So in this example, we have a user called Dylan Matthews who have a high enough score of a 97. So 97 in LogRhythm's world is a highly anomalous user. True machine learning, completely tuneless machine trying to detect what the abnormal user is in this scenario. So I can take the investigation further by clicking on that on that user to give a very detailed timeline view for that user. So this user, Dylan Matthews, have a high score of 97. The user card on top provides a lot more details, including any cases that user has been associated with in the past. We can also highlight the comments that other analysts have about this user, as well as the number of threat events. So we provide a summary based on the LDAP profile for that user to be able to provide a little bit more context for that user. So in this user, there are a number of relevant event cards that contributed to that score. Mind you, it's not an activity card. Activity by itself is great, but we highlight all the threat events, the threat event cards that contributed to that score. So now we have a large deviation from peer cluster. So this is a peer group analysis, a true dynamic peer group analysis. We take AD as a context, but that contributed to that score. So now we know about a user. We have established that this user is highly anomalous and suspicious. We can quickly add the user to a case management, to a case, by quickly adding it by highlighting the case management widget. We also let the organization give us the adaptive feedback, right? So we want to hear about the organizational context, and we can train the machine learning algorithm, and this is one place you can train, right? So by having training available at the observation level, we can let the analyst tell us whether Dylan Matthews is highly unexpected behavior, or if this behavior is unexpected of other users. We can also provide a number of tags to be able to provide the training set required for us to be able to train the machine learning algorithms.
So with that, I'm going to bring it home so that we can get to the questions. We have many LogRhythm customers on the call, so I apologize if some of this is, hopefully this rings true for everybody here. The first thing we talked about the analytics in depth to detect threats along the spectrum. I'll move right on. Visualizations for rapid qualification and investigation. As Samir showed, this enables threat hunting based on field hypotheses. And it also enables the monitoring of high-risk users, whether they're on the executive team or have some other relationship with the company that might heighten their risk to the organization. We have an embedded security automation and orchestration function, and our UEBA solution is 100% integrated with that solution to enable rapid investigations, to enable the delivery of feedback back to the system to make it smarter over time, and to enable rapid access to and saving of forensic evidence. We enable rapid implementation through cloud delivery, embedded device support, and tuneless analytics. And finally, more about us, less about the product. LogRhythm is, our solution speaks for itself. We have a field-proven solution. We have a track record of innovation, and we're focused on security. We are dedicated to helping organizations detect and respond to threats more quickly, and that's why we do an exceptional job at what we do. With that, we stand ready for questions.
Great. Thanks, guys. This is Peter, your moderator. I'm back. I want to remind everyone, before we begin the Q&A, I'd like to remind you to please direct your attention to the webinar survey. I mentioned that earlier. It's available on the right of the presentation window. If you've closed the survey, you can reopen the widget. Just click on the icon along the bottom of your screen. Again, thanks in advance for filling out the feedback form. Your participation in this survey helps us to serve you even better in the future. And let's move on to our Q&A. Just a reminder, it's not too late to participate. We still have time. Just type your question into the text box that's located to the right of the presentation window, or you can click on the Q&A icon. That's at the bottom of the screen. Either way, we'll try to get to your questions, and if there are any that we don't have time to get to today, we'll be sure to share them with our speakers who can answer via email. Let's take a look. We do have some questions coming in. That's great. Here's our first question. You guys talk about the importance of scenario-based analytics. How is that different from traditional SIEM correlation?
Sure, that's a great question. So, LogRhythm has been in security analytics since 2003. We started with the vision of helping organizations detect and respond to threats that began with a log management effort, and then the next step in that was the implementation of AI Engine, which we first released in 2011, a real-time analytics solution that we described earlier. SIM, the idea of SIM correlation, this is not typically a complement. In the world of analytics, when people talk about, quote, traditional SIM correlation, it's usually meant to imply solutions that are too simple to really do the job. The solution might require a bunch of configuration to make work. It might have idiosyncratic data requirements. It might only be able to employ a handful of analytic techniques. None of these things, if any of those things are true of the solution that you're looking at, I think you're going to be in a tough position to succeed. With LogRhythm, we're not really facing those issues. We might have started as a SIM and grown into a wider security analytics platform, but the first thing is that we're starting with the cleanest and richest data available in security. Our machine data intelligence fabric not only parses the data and enriches the data in the ways that we described before, but also accounts for the risk profiles within your organization. It is able to identify the risk associated with specific patterns of behavior. It's able to account for the false positive probability or the false negative probability of any given alarm. So we're starting with the cleanest and most enriched data. We are analyzing that data with a battery of techniques that is far more sophisticated than simple correlation. Those include things like statistical analysis, dynamic list, whitelisting, blacklisting, pattern matching, rate analysis, all sorts of different techniques that by themselves, those words are not important, but what does matter is the ability to use those analytical techniques to solve real problems. And that's what we make possible for customers because LogRhythm Labs, our team of dedicated threat researchers, they create analytics content that uses the optimal versions, the optimal analytical techniques to solve the problems that folks are facing within their environment. So that's the next thing. Then I guess I would wrap with the ability to understand progression along the kill chain. Obviously, someone who's approaching compromise is a whole lot more important than a simple than someone trying to hack it, trying to get their initial foothold within your environment. So being able to start with unclean data, analyze that data, and understand at a security level what it means. Being able to analyze the data with sophisticated, the right technique for the job, whether that's a simple correlation or something a whole lot more advanced. And then the ability to map what we identify to the kill chain puts analysts in a position to succeed. That means detecting threats before they become critical to the environment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Here's our next question. There are plenty of open source machine learning tools out there. So for bigger, for bigger organizations, is build your own a good option?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence products are out there. I think having a grounds-up approach is obviously a better solution than trying to assemble all the open source machine learning tools into one. Second point, I think security context is important, right? So you should be able to have a solution which actually is able to bring years of experience into the machine learning, right? ML is just not math, right? It is more than that. It's about the security context. It's about the tuning of the machine learning algorithm. It's about choosing the right learning set for the supervised machine learning, right? So yes, obviously, open source is great. We all use it at some level, and some of the machine learning algorithms we use are also academic in nature. But having that security context and bringing that organizational context by choosing the right machine learning training set, both in the labs and out in the field, is also critical for any solution.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that. Anton Chuvakin, a leading researcher with Gartner, recently posted a blog post about the different challenges that these sorts of projects typically encounter. At a very high level, there's typically a challenge around scale, being able to bring in a lot of data, being able to store that data over long periods of time, and being able to analyze a ton of data together. And there's a challenge around the content, actually making it relevant for security use cases, being able to use that data to detect threats. And what Anton Chuvakin read, perhaps we can send it out in the show notes, where you can probably find it pretty easily Googling. But what he describes seeing is that the scalability problem is a problem that open source tools are pretty good at solving. Whether it's Hadoop or whether it's something else, scalability is typically not the bigger challenge. Typically the bigger challenge is being able to go from a big data lake to having a data lake that's actually doing something for your company beyond just enabling a simple search. So I would refer you to that. There's a scalability problem that, yeah, you can probably solve that if you put your heart and mind to it. But when it comes to detecting and responding to threats more quickly, that's a whole different type of problem, and you're best served working with a company that is still in that area and has been building a solution for many years.
Okay, great. All right, here's our next question. The person who wrote this one says their company is evaluating UEBA solutions. So they'd like to know, what are some clear ways of determining which solutions are the most sophisticated? Their checklist, certain things to look for?
Yes, sorry for interrupting. So a couple things to start with. Nothing earth-shattering, but the proof is, or at least should be, in the pudding. So UEBA solutions. UEBA solutions should be able to prove out when it comes to your specific use cases. That's the first thing that I would say. I would establish specific. I mean, this is. I would probably try to push toward a POC, and I would I would just treat it like a traditional POC. Know what use cases that you're trying to solve for. Test the organization for the ability to solve for the use cases. The second thing I would look for is how well, in working with the company to make that POC happen, how efficiently can the system be set up? How quickly is it creating value for your organization? How responsive is the company to the specific concerns that you have and questions that you have? I think you start with the basics, and then you look for the vendor to prove it out based on your use cases.
Yeah, I would agree. I would also add being able to distinguish between anomaly and a threat. Machine learning is difficult, right? The security context is important. It becomes more and more important, right? So to be able to qualify an anomaly to a threat, I think is also a sign of a very highly sophisticated solution.
Okay, great. We do have more questions queued up, but I just want to remind everyone, it's not too late if you'd like to ask a question of your own. Just type your question into the text box, that's to the right of the presentation window, or click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. All right, now let's go on to our next question. This one's about structured data. Here's the question. You guys talk about your machine data fabric, but almost everyone is working with structured data. Aren't these basically all the same?
I think I might have answered this earlier. I apologize to the listener if I'm guessing that I probably got to this earlier, but the one thing that I might add is this. There's a layer of abstraction that you're looking to achieve across the different log data and event data in your environment. Obviously, if you have too much abstraction, the data starts to mean less. So one advantage that a logarithm would have over a bolt-on solution would be that if we're taking data in and we're analyzing the data and we're creating our analytics based on the structure of the data that we have chosen, we're going to be able to work with greater precision than an organization that is establishing that needs to abstract the data across multiple different types of analytics platforms. So if you're choosing a bolt-on solution that works with a handful of different SIEMs and their analytics are designed to work across all those different SIEMs, by definition, their machine data intelligence is going to have to be abstracted across multiple different SIEMs or security analytics platforms or that sort of thing. So you lose some of the granularity and you lose some of the ability to perform analysis when that happens. Previously, I spoke to the processing support, the enrichment. I spoke to hopefully mentioned that we have the industry's broadest data support, so we should be able to support more of the devices in your environment than other solutions. But yeah, I would really just draw attention to the precision that enables.
Okay, great. All right, here's our next question. In which industries do you see the most at risk? Sorry, let's try to rephrase that. Yeah, which industries are most at risk for insider threats? Which industries?
I would say any organization, any vertical that have users and network entities. I think we all are at some point impacted by the insider threat. So we have seen from a small company to big company, 1-person SOC to a 50-person SOC across the organization. We have seen insider. So anything that belongs to you that somebody would benefit from stealing, or we have accidental insiders. I think we all can benefit from an insider threat solution.
Yeah, so I would kind of look back to the reasons why people perpetrate these sorts of threats. So like obviously there are the different categories, but access to data, whether you're a healthcare company or some other type of company that has access to really valuable data, that's going to obviously put you at higher risk. If you're in a financial vertical, or if your company is tied into the backbone of the world economy, that's obviously going to present a greater threat. And then I would And finally, I guess I would point to intellectual property. There are a lot of companies out there, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, and otherwise, that we all know the efforts that other companies and nation states are taking to advantage their companies over others. And if there is that intellectual property, that's going to put you at higher risk as well.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a question here about AI. This questioner says, we're early in the development and use of AI, and they're wondering how much impact is AI really having on security today? How much impact from AI?
Yeah, we are still in the early phases where AI is helping with a lot of automation. So being able to predict the behavior, right? The behavior profiling, using machine learning as a component of AI. We are seeing solutions becoming more and more sophisticated. So yeah, there is a lot of potential for AI to be able to automate, to be able to predict and make the solutions better.
Yeah, I think we're very early days. We're very early days. Part of our hypothesis is that the leading solution in our space is not going to be the solution that invents new ways of doing artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's going to be the solution that figures out how to take existing methods and apply them to solve real security problems. So today, we're talking about the detection of user-based threats. Down the road, hopefully it enables us to automate other SOC-related tasks and make folks more efficient. So maybe that's detecting different types of threats. Maybe that's helping more rapidly onboard data sources. Maybe that's helping associate data to specific identities in a more automated fashion. Maybe that's enabling the automated execution of countermeasures in response to specific types of problems. But there's the challenge that everybody faces is detecting and responding to threats before they turn into compromises. We have an expanding attack surface. We have an ever-present limit on the number of analysts. So we need to figure out ways of doing our job more quickly and more effectively. And I think that artificial intelligence is an important part of that solution.
Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we're pretty much out of time for the questions. So Mark, Samir, would you like to make some closing statements?
You know, we're grateful to everybody who joined the call. We've been doing user and entity behavior analytics since before it was called user and entity behavior analytics. Obviously, our techniques have grown more sophisticated over time. The types of threats that we've can solve has expanded over time. But this is an area of real expertise, and grateful that everybody joined the call today.
Yeah, I would echo and say thank you for your time, and look forward to talking again.
Great. Thank you, Mark and Samir. Dark Reading appreciates your time and your expertise on today's topic. And we'd like to thank our sponsor, LogRhythm, and everyone in the audience. We appreciate your attention and participation. Within the next 24 hours, you'll receive a personalized follow-up email. It will contain details and a link to today's presentation on demand. Please feel free to invite your colleagues and peers who are unable to attend today's event. They can watch the presentation on demand. This webinar is copyright 2017 by UBM. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted by Dark Reading and LogRhythm, and the individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and opinions. On behalf of our guests, Mark Settle and Samir Jain, I'm Peter Krass. Thanks for your time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Peter.